Wait a minute, these NBA players made how much money coming out of the 1996 draft? The 1996 NBA draft was home to a number of absolute star players that will be immortalized forever in the history of the league. With that incredible talent comes a ridiculous amount of money. So in today's video, we're going to be covering the richest basketball players who came out of this draft and how they were able to earn their money. Make sure you stick around until the end of the video to find out who the richest player in this class is. Let's start off the video with Ben Wallace. Now, he was an undrafted player from this class, but I think it still counts. Wallace has apparently earned a total of $87.8 million throughout his time in the NBA, along with some other investments that he's picked up over the course of his NBA career. He grabbed numerous defensive awards while playing for multiple teams, giving him a lot of bonuses as he went on. Wallace also earned a massive 4-year, $60 million contract while he was in the prime of his career. Now, with a great pension plan from the NBA, I'm sure Wallace is just kicking back and relaxing after a full career of work that he put in. There really aren't a lot of outside investments to talk about or brand deals. For Wallace, the majority of this money really just came from playing the game. Shareef Abdur Rahim is just above Wallace in the earnings department of this draft. Shareef has netted a total of $95.8 million throughout his lifetime. He reeled in the majority of his earnings over the course of his extended basketball career, but later picked up some extra earnings as a coach and executive. When he retired after making a boatload of money, Shareef became an assistant coach for the Sacramento Kings to bring in some extra cash. Then he became an assistant general manager, then went on to be an official general manager for the Reno Bighorns. He came back and became the Associate Vice President of Basketball Operations for the NBA as a whole, and then was named President of the NBA G League, replacing Malcolm Turner. It's clear that not all of his money came strictly from his playing days, because I can only imagine the money that comes along with a few of those executive titles he was awarded with and still is to this day. Right above Shareef is Peja Stojaković. Stojaković has earned $98 million in his life, barely surpassing Shareef on this list. Stojaković didn't have a super long playing career, but was impactful throughout his entire time in the league, to say the least. He brought in the majority of his earnings through playing, but did find other NBA work after he officially retired. He was an assistant general manager for the Sacramento Kings at one point, and then flipped down to be a GM for the Stockton Kings, the development league affiliate for the Sacramento NBA team. I believe that Peja stepped down from his spot with the NBA organization, but still maintains his relationship with the D-League. Either way, I'm sure he's still finding ways to increase those total earnings and keep it moving upwards from here. Then we have Antoine Walker. Walker may be forgotten by a lot of fans of the league, but he did find a way to make $108 million during his time in the NBA. However, Walker skyrocketed downwards after entering the league. He made tons of money, but blew it all in a few years just because he wasn't subscribed to our channel. Can you believe that, guys? Go ahead and make sure that doesn't happen to you by subscribing to the channel, and leave this video a like down below too. Now, for real, Walker did lose tons of money through gambling habits, and he quickly filed for bankruptcy not long after reaching big highs in terms of contract money. Luckily, Walker was able to work his way out of the financial hole he dug himself into, and is now focusing on being a light for young athletes who may fall into that same hole that he did. He just recently worked with other professional sports players that were retired in order to talk to younger athletes about the importance of saving your money. I think Walker's back on the right track again and working with a few other random companies in order to stay afloat, but the entirety of that $108 million was earned while he was in the NBA, and to be honest, I think all of it's gone by now. Nevertheless, Walker was a very rich NBA player out of this draft class. Moving on, we've got Zydrunas Ilgauskas. Ilgauskas brought in a total of $124 million up to this point, and a large sum of that is just from playing in the NBA. He hasn't really been doing many endorsements as of late and really just stuck to playing exceptional basketball. He did receive a good amount of extra money due to his playing time in Lithuania, but outside of that, he stayed relatively quiet for a while. It may not be flashy or motivational, but Ilgauskas really just made his living off the NBA. Moving on to Steve Nash. Nash, of course, is a very well-known player in basketball history, and he's currently still heavily involved in the league today, doing something that we'll get to in just a second. Steve has earned $147 million in his lifetime, and here's how. About $144 million of that money was earned being a stellar basketball player, as you could probably expect, including a year in which he earned $13 million. He was involved in a lot of different endorsements around that time to boost his total net worth a little bit more, but never really involved himself elsewhere to double it like some other players. Nowadays, Nash is still working hard though. He's the current head coach of the Brooklyn Nets, and I'm sure that he's receiving a nice payday for that job too. Nash will likely get himself over the $150 million mark at some point in the near future, especially because he's still on the NBA pension list on top of his current salary as a coach. Hey, make sure you guys stick around until the end of the video to find out who the richest player was in this draft class. But first, we'll move on to our next guy, and that's Stephon Marbury. Marbury has earned a whopping $151 million, with the majority of that money coming straight from the NBA. However, I think it was the love he had in other countries that really lifted him higher than expected. For example, Marbury went on to play in the Chinese Basketball Association, and people initially thought it was kind of stupid, yet he found a way to win 3 titles in 4 years and became so popular over there that he even got a life-size statue created of himself right outside their stadium. Marbury was just a phenomenal businessman, and it showed off the court. He always knew what markets to tap into, and becoming a sensation in 2 different countries almost certainly helped market himself to other companies looking to hand out endorsements. Next up, we have Allen Iverson. Iverson was, without a doubt, one of the most likable personalities in this class, and is marked down as one of the best ball handlers that the game of basketball has ever seen. Iverson has made a living off that crossover and has earned $154.5 million to date. It's honestly a miracle that Iverson still has money right now. Iverson made a load of money from the league, but then spent some time making random appearances out of the country and in the G League in order to stay financially stable. For example, Iverson had once bought an entirely new car because he simply forgot where he parked his car at the airport. He also kept garbage bags full of money around the house and didn't even mind when one would go randomly missing. Through all of those bad habits, though, Iverson kept himself from drowning due to his lifetime Reebok endorsement, one that still nets him $800,000 a year just for being with them. The current CEO of the company even said that Iverson was worth the money they're spending on him even nowadays. Man, it's crazy how he still makes so much money despite all those issues and careless spending that he used to do. Still, I guess he's one of the top earners for a reason. Jermaine O'Neal is barely above Iverson on this list. O'Neal has earned a total of $168.8 million in earnings to this point, going down as the 3rd highest earner in the draft class. He's just one of those players that hasn't really dove into other money-making subjects ever since he initially retired. He'd sat out an entire season towards the end of his career because he felt physically and emotionally exhausted from playing. That season he sat out wasn't even because he didn't have any offers. In fact, he turned down multiple offers in order to get that rest season. He had such a good time with his family that year that he decided to stay away from the league for good after that and just do exactly what he wanted. I believe that O'Neal has just spent all this time with friends and family because he made so much money from the league and with a few other endorsements that he hasn't really needed to go out and do anything else, at least not right now anyways. Moving on to Ray Allen. Allen is the 2nd highest earner in this draft class with $184 million up to this point. A lot of that was obviously earned from playing in the NBA and being known as one of the greatest shooters ever, but he did have some off-the-court activities to net him some extra cash. For example, he was featured in 2 movies. Yeah, Allen was in 2 different films. The most notable was the 1998 Spike Lee film titled He Got Game, which saw him star next to Denzel Washington. Ray was given a lot of nicknames and was very popular at the time for his participation in the movies, and I'm sure he was able to get himself a lot of money on appearances regarding the film. We also can't forget that he spent 15 years in the NBA, making an average of $19 million a year, so it's pretty obvious why he ended up being one of the top earners. Finally, we're on to the richest player from the 1996 NBA draft class, and that, of course, is the legendary Kobe Bryant, a man who was taken from us way too soon. Yet, he was still the highest earner in the draft class by a mile. The Los Angeles Lakers legend and NBA champion had $328.2 million in career earnings. His accolades and stellar play on the court granted him a boatload of bonuses that I'm sure he loved receiving. Kobe just had a personality off the court too that people fell in love with, which is why he received so much money from endorsements. He was seen on a number of commercials and he openly supported Nintendo, Turkish Airlines, even Sprite. His largest deal with a product company was, of course, Nike, as he was getting paid $10 million a year to work alongside them. I believe Kobe also had some incredible investments, but I wasn't able to find any information about that topic. Still, being paid that much from product endorsements on top of being one of the best players to ever lace him up, I think we all know how he ended up at the top of this list. Thanks for watching this one, guys. Make sure to check out who owns the most expensive car from the 2003 NBA draft by clicking the video on the right. Or if you think YouTube might have done a better job picking a video for you, then go ahead and click the video on the left.